Hi, everyone. It's great to be with you again for the latest episode of Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. My guest tonight is Curtis Bort, and he and I would like for you to join us in aligning with the energies of co-creation so that this show gives you the best information to your highest good and best outcome. Welcome, Curtis. It's nice to have you.
Hey, Chessie. How you doing?
I'm great. For those of you who may not have met Curtis or don't know him or heard of him or anything, I want to cue you in because he's a cool guy. Curtis experienced a spiritual awakening in 1989 while pursuing a college degree. He became aware that the spiritual understanding and the ability to access and channel the voice of the source that lies within must be shared no less than 2 years prior to the galactic alignment that was scheduled to take place in December 2012. So Curtis, like so many other of my guests, was way ahead of his time. Curtis's philosophy is to find out who you really are and become that person without shame. Only when you have grown to love yourself will you feel truly loved and appreciated by others. He's always felt that the most important question anyone can ask you is one we never hear. Do you feel loved? He didn't think there was a shortage of people out there who'd have to say no, but when he asked himself that question at the age of 23, no was his answer. So that's when his spiritual journey began, and he asked the powers that be to understand why he didn't feel loved. And to that end, he wrote an interesting book, which I found fascinating. It's called The Evolution of Thought, the Book of Life. And it's a spiritual self-help book that turns the ancient biblical account of, I think I said this right, Curtis, correct me if I'm wrong, Godâ's book of life into self-fulfilling prophecy. So can you tell me and the listeners about what made you wake up? What was your first realization that things weren't just exactly right for you?
Well, I guess, as you said, I asked myself the question of whether or not I felt loved, and since my answer was no, I felt I had some thinking to do. And so I pondered for a couple of weeks, actually without sleep, and on the seventh day, I actually, instead of more questions, I had I guess what you would call a revelation, and it occurred to me that all the information I had, some of it was false, some of it was true, and some of it was in the wrong order. And I kind of basically just had to download everything I'd ever learned and re-upload it in a way that made sense. And so that's how it all began.
That sounds like a really good way to put it, and a lot of my other guests on the show have sort of had the same realization. It's nice to know you're not alone, isn't it?
Well, that was just it. At the time, I had felt or had thought that I was alone. I wasn't aware of the spiritual community, and I just had nobody in my life that reflected the things that I was learning. And so I kind of felt that it was all on me to bring this information to the world. It sounds kind of silly.
No pressure there.
No, and so that's why I got the idea for the book. And there was basically two schools for thought about 2012, and the first school was there would be sudden and dramatic changes, such as they speak of the end of the Mayan calendar and catastrophes and this and that. And the other school of thought was that 2012 was simply the midway point in like a 46-year cycle. But I wrote the book using the first one, as if there would be sudden and dramatic changes. And I kind of thought that if there was a chance of it going viral or something, that would include the 2012 deadline and also the Book of Life, which is supposedly, in Western religions, that's something that if your name is in, that you can continue on. So I basically wrote the book and spelled out the truth to the best of my ability and put some lines in the back where you could sign the book so your name would be in the Book of Life.
I like that. I've read Curtis's book, and unfortunately I can't find it. I've turned my house upside down. I'm afraid it's gotten packed away, so I hope you've got a copy with you, Curtis. The information in the book is extremely thought-provoking and would have been even more so when it was newly minted. But even now, at this date and time, the way things have progressed and the way things are changing and the new information that's coming through, I don't think you put anything out there that isn't coming to be. And he's put poetry in the book too, and it's remarkable, and I really enjoyed reading it. And it's very poignant and pointed. And did you channel the poems, or?
Yes, I considered the majority of the poems to be channeled works.
Mm-hmm. Well, what happened when 2012 came and went and it didn't live up to your expectations? I've asked several people this, and I've gotten a big array of answers.
Well, it wasn't necessarily my expectation because I had it in my mind that if there was enough people on Earth that had reached the point where they were ready to wake up, that the catastrophes and all of that would fall away, and we would start writing our own book, so to speak.
Well, I have noticed an upsurge in writers on this particular subject over the years since then. There are a lot of new books out there, a lot of new ideas, a lot of new philosophies, and I don't think any of them are right, and I don't think any of them are wrong. I don't know that we can be positive about anything that's going to happen, but what I do find interesting is the fact that so many of them are coming from different walks of life. They're coming from different ethnicities. They're coming from all different places, but they all have a thread through them that's the same. Have you noticed that?
Oh, yes, definitely. That's the difference between religion and spirituality, I think, in that, religious beliefs, there are plenty of them that conflict, and, basically spiritually enlightened people all pretty much say the same thing.
And I think you were right, spot on, when you asked the question, do you feel loved? That's the thread, is love, that unconditional love. And I talked with another guest several shows back about this particular topic. And I think it's a very important topic. And I'd like your take on it, Curtis. What do you think about unconditional love and how we get there?
Well, that's a very good question. And I think I have a little bit of a different viewpoint of unconditional love than most people. I guess especially spiritual people, in that I think that love differs in the physical realm than it does in the metaphysical realm, and that in the physical realm it requires certain conditions in order to grow and flourish here. And that I don't believe love, I don't think that it flourishes in a hostile environment. I don't think it walks far on an empty stomach. And, I think that even the love of our source, or God, or whatever you want to call it, is conditioned on His benevolence. So I think that unconditional love in the physical realm, although that it is possible to give love without judgment or condition, I think that there are always conditions on receiving it, and basically benevolence and the willingness to share is the conditions on giving it.
All right. So if I understood you correctly, because we're in the physical realm and we have the physical stuff going on, that's my favorite scientific word, by the way, is stuff. The unconditional part of it is, let's say, challenging for us?
Yes. I mean, you can claim to love someone unconditionally, whether it's a friend or a spouse or a child, but let's imagine for a second that this person all of a sudden contracted a rare brain disease or something that caused them to be abusive towards you. I don't think that you're going to be feeling the same about them after they try to do something hideous. So I think that, again, love is conditioned on benevolence. and that we can think that we love someone unconditionally, but that is certainly going to be challenged if the tables are turned in that respect.
Interesting concept. Do you feel that there is a point in our enlightenment where we can love people unconditionally no matter what they're doing? I mean, you don't have to like what they're doing, but you can love the person, right?
Well, it's if they're doing it to you, then that might change. I mean, they say that Jesus still loved us as he was being brutally murdered. I don't think there's too many of us that could do that.
I can't argue with you. I might have just a little flare of resentment there. I do think it's a good goal to aspire to, and it's a good path to try to walk. Do you think that we ever get where we're going while we're on this realm in this particular incarnation?
No, I don't. I think that these are merely steps along the road of our spiritual evolution.
Well, the reason I asked you that is somebody asked me the other day, they said, well, you seem so enlightened. Are you there yet? And my first thought was, well, no, I'm still on the planet, so probably not.
Yeah. I mean, I think that, before we incarnate, we're in a reality where we do feel loved and we feel connected to all things. And that's basically what we have to give up in order to come here. And, we might find it again while we're here, but it's certainly not automatic. I mean, there's a process that you have to go through. And I think that deep inside we're all terribly missing feeling connected and loved. And I think that that's why the reason for sex, drugs, and alcohol is to try to get back to that feeling. Mm-hmm. And I think
we do have
that we're basically...
I was going to say, we do have a tendency to substitute things that we think will help us, but the problem with that is they're all outside of us. And the love that you're talking about, I think, is the one that's deep inside that we have to find, right?
Yeah, I think that the thirst for love and feeling whole is actually relabeled and redistributed as the thirst for knowledge and experience.
Oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. Well, how have you managed to do that in your life?
Well, that's a good question. I found that, when I asked to understand why I didn't feel love, I had no idea what that was going to encompass at the time. And it was almost as if the powers that be backed a dump truck up to me and just dumped this whole load on me that I just had to sort through. And, one of the things I realized that I was full of negativity and, from my past experiences and this and that. And, I actually, being on my own and, not having any outlets, my solution was to basically go in the woods and cry. And I did that on several occasions until I figured I had, let enough out, which I had, that I was able to progress. And I know that people think that, if you have all positive thoughts, then only positive things can happen to you. But, the fact of the matter is that if you're a positive person, then you're more likely to attract positive people and situations into your life. Not that nothing bad can happen to you at that point. But, you can be as positive as you like, and there's still something that's outside of your control that is, able to happen to you that you're not going to like, or that might not even necessarily be a lesson. So I don't think that it's all one way or another. I think that it's a mixed bag of things that happen to us, and the way we respond to them is that really reflects our character.
Right.
But
very
so far as
I'm sorry, go ahead.
But so far as love and being able to feel and experience the way that we really think it should be, we have to kind of work through all of the past trauma, and we have to lower our shields, if you will. We erect shields that are designed to keep us from feeling bad, but, those shields also keep us from feeling loved.
True. Well, you said that love the way it should be. Now, that's our perception of what we think that is, yeah?
Yes.
Well, just like anything else that shows up in our life, if we're looking for something in one condition or one circumstance, we may miss it in another one, right?
Yes, that's true. But, there's different kinds of love that I guess you can consider all different shades of the same light. And, I'm trying to thumb through my chapter on love here. I wanted to read something out of it for you.
Okay, great. Good, I'm glad.
Okay, well, one of my paragraphs here says, so when will love be magical and healthy and beautiful the way that it should be? And the answer is when you grow beyond fear, ego, distorted self-image, and the need for control. So that's I believe, what we all have to, that's what we have to overcome in order to actually feel it, rather than just saying and hearing the word, which is infinitesimal in comparison to the actual feeling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really true. Would you read that again? I think that was worth repeating.
Okay, so when will love be magical and healthy and beautiful the way that it should be? The answer is when you grow beyond fear, ego, distorted self-image, and the need for control.
That's very, very pointed. That distorted self-image, I think, is where most of us have to begin, because that's what we know the best. That and fear, they kind of go together, I think. And fear and love,
I think that was the big thing for me, was actually believing that I deserved to feel love.
Right.
And I had that mindset before it could come to pass.
Absolutely. You also said something earlier. You said you had to go out in the woods and cry. I find that very telling because of the fact that I feel very strongly, and this is just my opinion, people, that connecting to nature can cleanse and heal a lot of stuff. And when you can go out in the woods like that and just kind of let everything go, it's sort of like having somebody's shoulder to cry on. And it can be very cathartic and very healing. Did you find it so, Curtis?
Yes, I absolutely did. I've always been connected to nature, and since, I was a young man, I've always been out in the woods and doing things, fishing and whatnot. And yes, I've always felt connected to nature, and, I'm the kind of a person that I can go out in the woods at night and not feel any fear of anything,
That's awesome. I love that we still have woods around that we can go into. I totally believe that even if you can't get to the woods, even if you just hug a houseplant, it can help you because of the fact that we're all connected. Do you feel that way? That everything's connected, animals, plants, rocks, people, everything?
Well, of course. I kind of think of God as being Play-Doh, but Play-Doh is all there is. So we're talking
like
about
a child's toy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But let's say that all there is in the universe is Play-Doh. Well, that's kind of what the case is, because all there is in the universe is energy, be it physical or metaphysical, and the different vibrations of which determine, what plane that you're on, and very low vibrations of energy can solidify and cause things to be physical.
I know my longtime listeners have heard me many, many times say that a friend of mine said that the Almighty is like a cookie and we're a crumb off that cookie. This is the person I'm quoting, Curtis, right here. He's got
Yes, what I said was our souls are all crumbs from the same cookie.
Right. And that has just captivated my imagination, and I quote you so often, Curtis, because it's such a good analogy, but I think I like your Play-Doh aspect even better.
Yeah, that's putting it away that even a child can understand. If a child asks you what God is, you just tell them God is Play-Doh, and Play-Doh is all there is.
I like that a whole lot.
So when you say that we're all connected, of course we're all connected because we're all made from the same thing. We all stem from the same source, and even things that appear totally different and opposite, they're basically made of the same thing.
Mm-hmm. What was it in your journey that made you open up and realize all this stuff that you realized? And I know that's like putting your feet to the fire here because it probably wasn't just one thing, but what in your process, if you can remember, like a turning point when the light bulb went on, did you have one of those?
Well, yeah, I most definitely did, and I remember when it was. I don't remember a specific thing that caused it, but it was, after the first week of sleep deprivation. And if you know anything about, some of the older world religions, they actually have, that's something that they do is to have sleep deprivation or fasting, some type of deprivation in order to spiritually awaken. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a big part of it. I kind of felt like, after a week of not sleeping, that my thought processes were really expanding, but it's dangerous because at the same time your ability to distinguish your imagination from reality is declining. And,
right.
That's why people who go through that end up in the hospital.
Well, I would think it would be something you'd want to do under surveillance or management of some sort, but we don't always do that, do we?
No, but it was, for me, it was an instant moment of just realization. And, I realized oneness, and I realized why I didn't feel loved, and there was just so many reasons for it. Mm-hmm. None the least of which being that the truth has been altered, buried, and withheld by the people in power.
Yeah, that's what I was going to just bring up. Don't you feel that that's the problem in a nutshell, is the people who know don't tell?
Yeah, well, that's certainly a big part of it. I like to think of people as being kind of like biological computers. And when you give a computer insufficient or false information, then you're not going to accomplish anything good.
Yeah, garbage in, garbage out, huh?
Yeah. So basically, I look at everybody as walking around with faulty programs.
Yeah.
And so we have to try and figure out what's true and what isn't, and put it all in the proper perspective.
Well, do you see that changing as more and more people come into the awakened state, that the information is getting disseminated in a bit more of a correct, let's say, manner?
Yes, I definitely do, but that also touches on the one point. If I had one point I was going to make today, it would be that beware of black and white thinking. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I see in spiritual people just as readily as I see it in other people.
Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, sure. It's like people who would come up to you and tell you that you've had thousands of lifetimes. Now, how do we know this? I happen to know that there are people on the planet who are incarnating for the very first time. Mm-hmm. So it's ridiculous for people to think in this all or none type of way. And historically, some of the things that you're led to believe are all true or all false might be something like the Bible. And the fact about the Bible is it contains valid channeled writings, but it also contains false entries written just for the purpose of control. So, but that's not how they're presenting it. They're presenting it as if it's all has to be true 100%, or if it's not, then it's all false 100%. Well, it's somewhere in the middle, and that's the case for so many things in this life. like the ancient, or not ancient, but the philosophical question of whether or not we're free or determined. They present it as if it has to be one way or the other. But the fact of the matter is that we're free to the degree of awareness of the factors that influence our life, yet we are also determined by factors that are beyond our control. And spiritual people who would say that it's all about your own thoughts, I just have to say that they're full of it, because there are always going to be things beyond our awareness and control.
Uh-huh. Well, let me ask you some more on this subject. As we become aware of what you just said, that there are things out there that are beyond our awareness and beyond our control, the realization that there are things beyond our awareness kind of bring them into the focus of our awareness, do they not?
In a sense, yes. That's one of my favorite historical figures is Socrates. And he basically said that there are plenty of people who think that they know, and few, if any, that actually do. And while I neither know nor think I know, I feel I have a slight advantage.
Well, what I was trying to get out there, I think, is that as we become more aware of what is a truth, as long as we hold it as a truth, we're doing it again, aren't we? We're making a judgment that we're holding on to, and I think all of it's actually constantly changing, isn't it?
Well, I wrote a section about truth specifically and trying to dissect it a little bit. And let me see if I can pull this up for you here. Let's see. The truth in all matters may not be extracted from any one given source, save the source of all things, or may we always benefit from the adaptation of any one given philosophy. The most sensible means of establishing truth is to apply a variety of thinking styles where and when appropriate, to look from all conceivable viewpoints, hold reason and emotion at equilibrium, and consider all matters in the light of the circumstances surrounding them. Factual information or truth can be shared and passed on to others. People can and do hand you the truth each and every day, such as if you ask what time it is and somebody gives you an accurate answer. However, the truth of our feelings, perceptions, preferences, and beliefs, as well as the truth of our hearts, is only for yourself to unveil, and it varies from one individual to another.
So basically, truth is subjective, right?
Yeah, it may be hidden or apparent, whole or fragmented, black or white, or many shades of gray. Some truths are absolute. Others may change under similar circumstances, fall subject to the interpretation of the individual, or vary with the passage of time. Recognizing the characteristics of a truth often helps reveal hidden viewpoints worthy of consideration. Many truths are unalterable. However, the truth and reality of our feelings, behaviors, habits, attitudes, and beliefs do fall under our power to change.
I agree with that. One of the things I was thinking while you were reading is what I've discovered over my few years here on the planet is that once you think you know all about something, that you stop learning about it. You stop knowing your information. So that truth of that particular thing becomes static in your mind. And so ever since I figured that out, as I look back on my life, the years that have gone past, and see all the changes, because back in the 50s, something that was a steadfast truth is no longer so.
Mm-hmm. I see what you're saying. And also, in a broader sense, the minute that you think you know something, what does that do to your instinct?
Well, you're kind of labeled there. You're boxed in there.
Mm-hmm. So if you want to live by your instincts, you have to be a little bit more like Socrates in understanding that you don't know everything and leaving yourself open.
Right.
If you're not open, you can't use instinct.
That's true. I once this became an awareness in my mind of this thinking you know it all, I kind of let go of all of that. It's like, okay, teach me something new today, and let me see the old in a new way. Let me find a new paradigm. Let me find a new perspective. And that has done wonders for me figuring out what's coming next, because I don't have to know. It takes away all of that need to know stuff and just let it happen. And my favorite expression on this particular subject is go with the flow and allow it to be what it is.
Mm-hmm. That's actually my first rule of reason. In my book, I have 3 rules of reason, and that would be the first one. I'd be happy to read it for you. Oh, the second life's lesson states all rules and laws. No, that's a different one. Hold on. The second life's lesson, and one all should see, some things aren't presented the way they should be. Pictures are painted in black and in white. Questions imply that one's wrong and one's right. Where options are few and leave no room for growth, few choices not mentioned are neither or both. Neither are true where the facts disagree, or both may be true and in different degrees. However clear-cut any problem may seem, the very best answer may not be extreme.
See, guys, that's what I meant. That's one of his poems, and I just love the way you've been able to encapsulate something as huge as that into something as simple and poignant as the verse you just read.
Yeah, well, a lot of my stuff, poetry reminds me of someone we're all aware of, and I believe he was one of the greatest source channels of our time. His name was Dr. Seuss.
Ah.
So here's a man who used poetry to encapsulate life's lessons for our youth, and I think he did a wonderful job of it. And, I think that my poetry is very similar, though it's new age. It has the same rhythm and the same rhyme and the same way of trying to get lessons across.
Well, one of the things about Dr. Seuss is I never read him as a child. It was I didn't. I don't know why. But I did read him to my children, and as I was reading it to my children, that's when it occurred to me that the man was wiser than I was led to believe, because everything's sort of masked under this silly storyline that he's got. But when you really get down to it, he's really speaking some heavy truth there.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
How many poems have you written? Do you know?
Well, that's a good question. I believe in my book I have 18, I think it's less than 20, and I've written probably, 30 or 40 poems that I could probably find somewhere.
Sounds like it's time for another book.
Yeah. It's when I do what I consider channeling, it's not really easy for me, and I find that rather than talking to another person, if I'm talking to God, rather than putting a question out and expecting something back, what you have to do is you have to pull it into your deepest core. So you're pulling the question in and letting go for the answer. And I was kind of shocked and amazed that when the answers started coming through in poetry form. But I believe that, on the other side, in the higher metaphysical realms, that song is the method of communication, and song translates to poetry in the physical realm.
I can completely concur with you there. Being a songwriter, that's how I got through a lot of the, I'm going to call it yucky stuff in my life, was to put it to music. And that allowed me to kind of stand in front of an audience and just open my heart and let it all flow out under the guise of a song and really get it out there. And that was very cathartic for me.
I think that a lot of musicians are like that, and I hear some really heavy truths, that people have written into song lyrics. And, I consider a lot of those to be channeled works as well.
Well, they are. When I first started writing a lot, I used to meditate with my guitar in my lap, and I'd always get two songs. I'd get one for the deity, and then I'd get one for myself. And they sort of had a theme to them. And so I get what you're saying. Well, what's your next step now? You've got a book out there. I know you do wonderful work with stones and make beautiful jewelry and that sort of thing. What else do you do to stay on your spiritual path?
Well, I guess my next step is to do like a rewrite. You said that there isn't anything I wrote in the book that wouldn't hold up since 2012. And I think that that's, kind of false. I think that maybe I might have lost up to, 5% of the book. There are things that I wouldn't say, after the fact now that I have in there. So I guess my next step would be to go through and make it a better book and more of a timeless book, because this thing was basically set to expire on 2012.
Well, like I tell my students, you don't know till you know, And I think that's a very good idea. One of the things that happens is information does become stale when you look at it from a different perspective. Mm-hmm. And as you grow and you learn and you evolve and expand, these things do change. It's that static thing we were talking about earlier, yeah?
Yeah, and it wasn't that it was so much my belief that there would be sudden dramatic changes on 2012. That was just the way I chose to write the book, because I saw it as an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was my best chance to get information out to the majority. But I think that Oprah has probably done a better job at that than I have.
Well, I can't argue with that either. But the thing is, I believe that as we awaken as a species, and as we continue to share information through programs like this one and books like yours and books that other people have written and other programs and that sort of thing, I think what's happening, and there's a scientific term for it, and I do not know what it is, but as more of us, I guess they call it the 100th monkey.
Okay, I know what you mean. So you're saying there's a critical mass here, and once so much of a percentage of us are aware of it, then it becomes general knowledge.
Right, and as it becomes general knowledge, that wave grows, and as it grows, and what I've been seeing happen through all of this is the wave isn't just a wave. It changes, it moves, it expands and contracts with this understanding that this group of people is putting out there. And it is getting bigger, and it's getting faster. Things are happening faster now than they did back, say, in 2011 or even 2012. That's the biggest change I've seen, energetically speaking, is this awakening and growing of information. And the cool part of it is that sharing. When I woke up and started to look around, I, too, like you said, I felt like I was the only one getting this information, and I felt like, gosh, do I say anything and let people think I'm nuts, or do I just stumble along and try to do what I'm doing, not understanding what it is I'm doing? And it was quite a quandary. But as more and more of us are waking up, we have a group of people now where, we were just all alone. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, where I really saw it explode was like back in 2006 through 2008. I started in on the MySpace thing, and there was like a light worker community that just exploded from that medium, which is why the Illuminati purchased it and basically dismantled it. So, that's that was, for me, that was a big deal. Seeing all of this information come out on the computer and being made readily available to whoever was interested in it. And I think it just grew from there.
I didn't see it start until later than I'm behind everybody, and anybody who's listened to my show and is aware that I just kind of stumbled into my awakening, and I seem to be I don't know, months, years behind everybody else, which is fine because that's my path and your path is your path and all that sort of thing. But it seems as though in the last, I'm going to say 5 years, this thing has gotten some momentum that I never saw coming. It's like a runaway freight train at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, one can only hope so. But yeah, it's been mounting and growing since before either of us realized it, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, very cool. So, well, I did ask you what your next step was, and you said do a rewrite on the book. Do you think that's forthcoming anytime soon, or is it one of those things you're going to really have to think about?
I think. Well, I think that I'll probably start in on it soon, and it's I don't think it's going to take too long because I already have the bulk of it. I believe that 95% of what I said in the original book still stands right. On its own, and so basically I just need to go through and pick out the few little things that make it look bad, since it's after 12/21/12, such as that date on the front cover, and make it more of a timeless piece that's just basically giving the facts and offering the reader a chance to agree or disagree with them.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm really excited to see what you come up with. I'm looking forward to your rewrite. Let's see. I've got another question here somewhere. I know I do. Okay. Here it says, according to you, many are ready to end the dualistic cycles of condemnation and successive rebirth, replacing fear and doubt with love and understanding. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know we kind of tap danced around it and all, but can we really kind of put a laser focus on that, or do you think we've already done that?
Well, no, I haven't touched on that specifically, but basically, the majority of people, up to this point, I feel have been, living in the survival stage of human evolution, and we're basically, more than anything else, we're responding to subtle fears. And they were kind of disguised themselves because it's not like something that jumps out and literally scares you, but we're talking about the subtle fears that we live with every day that cause us to make the wrong decisions. Mm-hmm. And basically not wanting to re-experience unpleasant elements of our past, and that's pretty high up on the list. But when we allow fear to control our thought processes, it almost always leads us in the wrong direction. And that, instead of living our lives to avoid the unpleasant, we have to turn that around and live our lives to experience what we're after.
Right. Well, I can agree with that as well. One of the things that I found out that I had to do was I had to face those fears down. And when you do that, it's kind of like that, and it's not the fear itself, it's the anticipation of what you think is going to happen. It's like going to the dentist. You dread going to the dentist. You know there's going to be pain. You know there's going to be that awful whiny noise. But once it's over with, you can look back and go, gee, that wasn't half as bad as I thought it was. And that's what I have found to be the case with these subtle fears that you're talking about. In this survival mode, we can't, like you said, we cannot grow if we don't overcome that fear. And do you have any suggestions as to how we can face those fears down and beat them into submission?
Well, basically, you just have to start catching yourself when you're making a decision that's trying to steer you away from something you don't want. And, instead of running from your fear, you need to start running towards them. And, once you grow beyond the fear, then you've truly grown in spirit.
One of the things a friend of mine told me is that if you actually put love into that situation, because love and fear can't live in the same place, the fear will diminish. What do you think about that?
I think that basically as your spiritual strength and awareness increase, then the fear will decrease, automatically, and the spiritual understanding will take its place.
One of the things that I think is a really good connection, and I'd like to know what you think about that, is as our soul crumb realizes that it's from that big cookie, and we reconnect with that big cookie, that helps me diminish fear about a lot of things.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you can truly step back and look at the bigger picture, not just the context of a single lifetime, then that takes a lot of the pressure off, because you see that it's all heading towards an ideal place.
I get it. What was coming through my head as you were talking was I can just see me deciding, okay, I don't like this the way the Play-Doh's formed, so I'm going to go and reshape that Play-Doh and make it something that I like better.
Yeah, so basically faith in God isn't about what anybody else says it is. It's about your trust in God and believing that all is working towards the greater good. And if you don't believe that all is working towards the greater good, then you're pretty much screwed.
Well, one of the other things that I like is the freedom to realize that you do have choices, and you can change your mind, and you can change your direction should you choose to do that. Do you agree with that?
I agree, and I believe that free will is an actual thing, and that we have it. Now, there are a lot of spiritualists out there that claim that we make all these decisions on the other side, but what would that do to free will? That would basically eliminate it. What these spiritualists are saying, that we make all these decisions and write all these contracts on the other side, down to every time we go to the bathroom, we actually signed up for that too. But no, I don't think that that's the case. I think that there may be some points or some things that we work through that may be predetermined. But if you go saying that everything is predetermined, then there is no free will.
I agree with that too. I do believe that we come here with a certain agenda in mind. There are certain things that we choose to learn, and certain things that we choose to investigate and explore. And where the free will comes in is that decision that this is the wrong path, I need to change my mind. And without that, you're right, we would be screwed.
Yeah, without the option to go the wrong way, then it wouldn't really be a free will decision, would it?
That's right. That's right. And let's face it, all of us have gone the wrong way at one time or another.
Mm-hmm.
And the good part of that is when you realize that's what you've done. And you change your path, you change your choices, you change your decision, you change your awareness.
Mm-hmm. I think that there are a lot of parents out there that raise their children in resonating with fear, don't want to let them do this and that because they're afraid they might get hurt or something bad will happen. But you have to realize that there's a point you need to step back and let life be the teacher, because, as you said, each of us have to make these mistakes in order to grow and progress. And if we're not allowing the people in our lives to make those mistakes, to keep them safe because of our fears, then we're not letting them grow or prepare themselves for what lies ahead.
That's true. And what popped into my head while you were telling us that is the parent who says, don't stand on that chair, you'll fall and get hurt. What you have very successfully done is you have planted that seed of fear that the child is going to fall and get hurt, and eventually they will. So kind of watch what you're saying, because you don't know what seeds might be planted. And if you're consciously aware of what it is you're trying to relay to your child, you can put them in a better mindset at an earlier age than you found it. At least that's been my situation.
Yeah, I think, it's not a one way or the other type of thing. You have to consider the circumstances surrounding each issue. And
right.
there might be times where it's better not to let your kid stand on that chair.
Yeah.
Because, my mother fell off a chair when she was 4 and had spinal problems for the rest of her life.
Wow.
So it might have been better in that situation to not let her do it. So, you have to consider everything in the light of the circumstances.
My point there wasn't the fact that you let them do it. It's what you say to them. Get down from the chair, you'll fall and get hurt. You can just say, get down from the chair. It's not a good place for you to be standing right now. And the message is totally different. And that's kind of what I was talking about. But yeah.
Yeah. I think I had a lot of respect for I had a lot of respect for my brother in the way he raised his boy. That he was very thorough in explaining options along the way, as saying, if you don't do it this way, then chances are this might happen or that might happen. But he never said, don't do this, don't do that. He basically
I like that.
Yeah, I did too. I had to give him credit for that.
I think that's one of the things that happens with children, and I was discussing this with another friend of mine just the other day. Children don't see the gray areas. They see black and white because they don't know what's going on in the parent's mind. But if you do a little bit of explaining and you do point out options and you do point out reasons, I think the child grows up with a little bit less, what's the word I want? With a little bit more, let's say, discernment in the situation. They can look at it from a different point of view. Because as young children, you don't see that. You just see whatever it is you want this 5 seconds. And if you are given this information, that gives you room to grow and learn and surmise what may or may not happen.
Yeah, I think that, understanding as it increases, then fear decreases, even if it's not spiritual origin. I think the more that you're aware of, then the less reason you have to be afraid of things. And
decreasing fear is always good.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, it needs to save you, and then that'll jump up later, too. Curtis, I really appreciate you being on the show today. It's been a wonderful conversation with you. But before you go, I know you've already made your salient point, but I would ask you please to repeat it. And please give our listeners your contact information if you would. And again, I will have it listed with the show so you can find Curtis if you want to. But let us know how to get hold of you.
Okay, well, my email is, my pen name on the book is the missing link, so my email is mlink, that's MLINK 66 @yahoo.com, and you can shoot a message to me that way. If you're interested in my book or anything like that, just send me an email and I'll get you that information.
All right. Could you restate your salient point? Because I think it was a really good one.
Sure. I think that, it just has to do with extremist thinking, and that there's, as you were saying, that, children don't always see the gray area. Well, I think that's the way we're raised. I think that we're taught to think in black and white, and I think that often that eliminates us from coming to any sensible conclusions in a variety of subjects. Things are presented time and time again in a case where it has to be all the way true or all the way false. But I think that the best answers in life aren't on one extreme or the other, but they're somewhere in between.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Hang on. I want to talk to you a little bit more after the show, Curtis. Don't hang up. But I want to thank all my listeners for joining us for the show. Excuse me. If you'd like to send in a question or a suggestion for a topic that you'd like covered on the show, please send your question, your suggestion, or your request to me at Chessie at ChessieRoberts.com. And you can find all of my information at ChessieRoberts.com. And I want to remind you that all of my services and programs are now by donation. They are no longer at price point. So please go and see if there's anything you'd be interested in, and you can catch up with me, and we'll make it happen. My music that you hear at the beginning and the end of the show, a little part of, is found at archersmeadow.com, and that's where all of my poetry is in my music. And my book is on Amazon.com. Just go in and type in Chessie Roberts, and the book will come up. Thank you all for listening, and come back anytime to hear Get on the Grid with Chessie Roberts. Have a great week. Bright blessings. Bye.